Hello everyone, I'm Boshaga Mitran Ravichandran, and today for Project 3, CE570, I'll be presenting on pipe supports for my scalar, vector, and tensor fields. And what I'm modeling is this image behind, and what it is, it's a pipe support. You've got your stand, and you've got your saddle, and usually out in the field, they take huge pipes, put on it. This is outdoors. Here's another picture to show you how it would look like outdoors. So you've got your curved saddle here, and you've got this nice cuboid shaped thing here that for your stand, and this is curved on the top to have a nice meeting surface, so two parts. And usually what they would do is they would take these pipes and put them on top out in the field. Okay, for my parameterization, I'm using my inner pipe radius r equals to 2, my saddle radial thickness, I'm using 0.3, saddle width 3, that's this guy here, 3 units, my saddle length, I'm using 1.5, stand length, sorry, that's this here, stand height at 8, that's here, and of course for my angles, that is representative of these angles here. Okay, let's jump into the next slide for my MATLAB code demo. On the right is a little teaser on how the scalar field looks like, and I'll explain in a second what they mean. On the left here are the geometries that we just briefly touched on, so R, T, and so on. Here are my resolutions, and on the next slide here I have an image of how the two parts, the saddle and the stand, is modeled on MATLAB. And here's a brief snippet of the code which I'll show you directly on MathCAD right now. So that's part 2. Let me jump into MATLAB. There we go. And let's go up to where the parameterization is. Okay, so here you can see that I've got two parts, right? This is the part 1, the saddle, and that's what's being defined here. You can see that I've got curves, and it's giving you that nice curved surface on the top and on the inner and outer sides. And for my part 2, I'm defining the stand, and you can see here nothing too complex for now. You've got your top that is curved, but the rest of them is just defining my edges of my cuboid there. Okay, now let's get to the interesting bit. The scalar, vector, and tensor fields. What I'm doing is I thought it would be interesting to model it as a real-world experiment where you would usually have these pipe supports and you would have wind forces kind of swaying it from side to side. So that's what this is. The scalar field here represents my wind pressure, so I'm going at 100 pascals, and it increases as you go up in the x3 direction. That's what this is. So as you go up, my wind pressure is going to increase, indicative of stronger wind pressures at the top. And my vector field here is showing you the wind force. So think gusts of wind and so on. Again, strong at the top. But to make it a little bit more challenging, a little bit more interesting, I decided to add in some vortices and some variations in the other direction, the x2 direction. So you've got this 0.5 sine x1 there. And again, for my x1 direction, it increases along with my height. And there's no vertical component of this wind force. That's just purely lateral forces. And for my tensor field here, this is representative of the material stiffness. And what's going on is I'm defining the center part as more flexible, and as you go towards the edges, it becomes more stiffer. And we'll see that when I run the code. Okay, so I'll go ahead and run the code here to show you that yes, it does work. And there we go. Here are the figures. For figure 5, you can see that we've got the tensor fields that's showing you the difference in the change in the material stiffness. For my point, I'm going to go ahead and pick the point where the saddle meets the stand. I think that's a little bit interesting there to see how much it sways. So that's going to be 0, 0, and -2. I'll hit OK, and we can see the results are populated in the back. But before we jump into that, let me quickly go through the figures. So in figure 4, you can see the vector field here as displacement. So again, this is the wind force, and I think it turned out quite nicely here. You can see that, yes, we've got one direction of the lateral force, and the other direction, the x2 direction, you've got a nice variation there that is representative of real-world wind variations. Figure 3, this is my vector field. It shows the same variation there. And for figure 2, this is my scalar. This is showing you the wind pressure, and no surprises. You can see that at the bottom you've got lower wind pressure, and as you go up you get a little higher on the wind pressure there. And figure 1 is just the parameterization. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Before that, let's take a look at the output. And you can see here at 0.00 -2, my vector u is 1.500 tensor t, and vector tu is 1.500. And going into the slides here on computations, you can see that yes, this is my vector field, tensor field, and again, scalar, vector, and tensor fields that I just explained. And for my alternate method in hand calcs, we can verify that yes, my tu is indeed 1.500. What's going on here is I'm taking a point P, 0, 0, -2. This is my u at this point, this is my t at this point, and I computed my tu. And here's the vector field as displacement image.